What's going on, everyone? Today I'm going to be giving you a review for Godzilla Minus One. This is going to be spoiler free, so don't worry about any specifics. I really just want to talk about this. I wasn't planning on doing a review, but after seeing it in the theaters, I feel like there's a lot worth mentioning. So let's get into this. We're going to talk about the positives and the negatives, and then we'll give it a rating out of 10. Starting off with the positives, this by far has the best story and characters out of any Godzilla movie I've ever seen. Now, I gotta make this absolutely clear. I have not seen that many Godzilla films. I've seen the recent American ones with the new MonsterVerse, and I've seen the original from 1954. That's it. So I haven't seen enough to the point where like that saying really means that much. Me saying it's the best story and characters, that's not, there's like over 50 Godzilla movies. Now I do plan on watching all of them at some point. I think that'd be really enjoyable to do, but currently I've only seen a few. This one though, definitely has the best story and characters I've ever seen. I would argue it's even my favorite of all of them as well, but just in terms of story and characters especially, which is definitely the most important part of a movie, yeah, they're the best ones. They're the ones that you care about the most, you are most interested in, for the most part, at least for me. I don't know if everyone feels the same way, but I genuinely was enjoying the character moments just as much as the, Godzilla action scenes, which is not really the same for the American Godzilla movies, where I felt like those ones I was much more interested in what was going on with Godzilla and just watching him just destroying buildings and just causing mayhem. This one I felt like he wasn't really the focus, it was more so on the characters, but it was actually a good thing because you do have a lot of interest in the story with these characters. I'm honestly always seeing this argument from a lot of Godzilla fans that they prefer like only seeing the monsters. They don't want to see all these human characters. And I could understand that point for some of the movies, like especially, like I said, some of those recent American ones where the characters aren't that great and the story's not that great. So yeah, you're going to prefer to see what's going on with the monsters. You're going to want to see them just fighting each other and, like I said, just destroying cities and all that. Not to say I didn't like the characters in those movies. I actually thought they were fine. I know a lot of people don't like them. And so it makes sense why you prefer to see that. But I think it's better for a movie to have that more well-rounded experience where yes, you're going to enjoy the action stuff, that's going to be entertaining, but you care just as much about those smaller dialogue moments between characters, and this movie provides that very well. Something that was interesting about this movie compared to the other Godzilla movies I've seen is that it takes place like directly after World War II. So the one from the 50s was like about 10 years after World War II, and obviously the American ones were like, decades later because they were in present day. But this one was literally like it took place the years following the war, which I think was important because this touches on the effects of the atomic bombs in Japan, for the end of World War II. It touches on that probably more than any Godzilla movie I've seen. Obviously, the original from 54, that did cover it, and it had some conversations revolving around it. Actually, that was a big point about the movie. But this one probably talks about the most because it actually shows the effects of it. Like directly after, it shows what it did to a lot of the people in Japan and how they interpreted what the events of what happened, how they felt about it. It goes very deep into that, even just in terms of the government and how they dealt with the situation as well in Japan. And I believe the whole point of this movie being titled Godzilla Minus One is that like, okay, Japan already took a massive hit with those bombs being dropped. And then directly after that, like literally years later, not even like a couple years, 2 years, Godzilla attacks Japan and causes a lot more death. So it was just like they were hit already once, they were already at zero, they were at bottom, and then Godzilla caused it to be even below that. Like it was really bad. So the main character of this film, he's actually a Japanese kamikaze soldier, and I love how the movie touches on that concept because I actually have never seen a movie to significantly cover that concept. And it talks about like the expectation for those soldiers to fulfill their duty, because obviously a kamikaze pilot, they're going to be, crash landing into, the enemies, and they'll get themselves killed in the process. And it's obviously not a very, like, it doesn't really value human life all that much because the whole idea of it is getting yourself killed in order to kill others. And this movie touched on that a lot. And it's so interesting what they're able to do with that concept because of the main character being one who actually did not fulfill his duty and was just scared, didn't want to do it. He didn't want to let himself die. Even if it's for the cause of the war, he did not want to do it. And he lives with a tremendous amount of guilt because of it, because even a lot of people will like talk to him about it and they'll immediately be like shamed of him, because they'll just be like, well, why didn't you do it? You didn't fulfill your duty. And they're blaming him for, everyone dying, which obviously is not a great mentality to have, but it's so interesting how they cover on that. And the arc that this character goes on because of all of that is so well written. It's tremendous. And there's a really touching story between the main character and this woman that he lives with, and they're not dating, and so it kind of creates this interesting conflict between them, because they're also taking care of this child together, but they're not actually together. Everyone just kind of assumes they are, but they're not. And I think the way they touch on that story is just so good. And they touch on the reasons why they're not together in the movie. And it's so well written to this main character. Honestly, it's one of the best protagonists I've seen in a movie this year, probably in a movie I've seen in a long time. And honestly, this movie has a lot of emotion to it. It genuinely made me cry, which I don't think a single other Godzilla movie made me do that. I actually don't remember. I can't remember if I cried in the other ones, but I don't think I did. So yeah, that's pretty impressive for a monster movie, Godzilla movie, to make someone cry, which usually doesn't happen with a lot of people. Like I said, I haven't seen a lot of the other ones. I don't know if the other ones would do that, but I'm just saying it was not something I expected. I did not expect to get teary-eyed from a Godzilla movie. And then obviously the action scenes with Godzilla, they're great. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and act like that's the best part of the movie, because it's not. Like, if you can give less of a shit about dialogue and characters and you just want to see Godzilla killing people, this is probably not the best Godzilla movie for you, because honestly, that's not really what it's about. But there are some great scenes with that. It looks pretty solid. I don't think the CGI is like the best I've ever seen. I saw people they were kind of, hyping it up a little too much. It's not the best CGI I've ever seen. It looks great though, especially for the budget this movie was given. And I don't have any complaints there with it. But the scenes themselves were really intense. A lot of destruction. What you'd expect from a Godzilla movie. The sound design too was amazing. Like, especially with the heat ray blast thing. The sound design on that was, it was so good. The roar and everything. Apparently they used the original roar from the 1950s film as well, which was cool. They also reused a lot of the music from the original, which I'm sure a lot of the Godzilla movies do that. I think that's fine. It's good music. It's kind of fitting for it, obviously. So I loved that. And yeah, pretty much most of the stuff about this movie was good. I think the only negative I could have for this movie is honestly revolving around the Godzilla action. Although I really enjoyed it and it was really intense, I think we could have used a couple more scenes like that, because like I said, a lot of the movie is mainly the characters and the dialogue, but the movie was only like 2 hours. You probably could have added like 5 or 10 minutes of just more Godzilla destruction, because obviously that's entertaining stuff. And I think it would have added to the movie, in my opinion. There's a lot of the Godzilla stuff in this movie is not even in like city locations either. A lot of it's actually just him in the water, which is very different, obviously. So I mean, it's great, don't get me wrong, but I think I could have used just a little more destruction. Maybe have him go into another area and just, I don't know, do some more damage, because it would be more, add some entertainment value to some of those scenes. But like I said, you don't really need it in this movie. It's just one of those things where I'm like, yeah, they could have used a little bit more. So for a rating, I'm gonna give this a 9.4 out of 10. It is definitely one of my favorite movies of this year. One of my favorite, non-English movies I've ever seen as well, which that's another thing. I don't know if everyone knows this before going into it, but yes, it is not in English. It's obviously a Japanese film, so it's in Japanese, and I did not have a problem with that whatsoever. Maybe like 5 years ago, I would have preferred not to have seen a movie that's not in English, but I've gotten used to it at this point, and I actually don't mind it at all. It's just, are you fast enough reader? Because you got to read the subtitles and then look up at the screen fast enough to catch what's going on. Some people can kind of master looking at, the subtitles like the corner of their eye, so they don't necessarily have to look down at it. But it doesn't bother me. I mean, you're missing out on a lot of great movies by only sticking to your own language of films. Obviously, there's, dubbed versions that probably exist. I didn't see any in the theaters, though. All the versions I saw were all subtitles, so I prefer the subbed ones, though. Like, I'm not going to want to listen to, trying to dub over it in English. It just would kind of ruin it for me. So I much prefer watching it in the original language. And like I said, if you're very much against doing that, I think just at least try it, because if you haven't tried it, you're never going to know if it's going to work for you or not. For me, I think it was honestly Squid Game that, like, crazy enough, I know that's like such a, stupid thing, but that's the show that made me realize, yeah, I can watch other movies in other languages. And I started doing it. And now I've probably seen about 20 at this point, maybe a little less than that. And I would love to see even more, because yeah, like I said, there's a lot of other great movies out there that aren't probably in your own, language. And in my case, in English. So you're going to miss out on them if you're not watching them. So yeah, I love this. We're getting a lot of Godzilla content recently. Obviously, the trailer for Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire, recently released. And there's a Godzilla show. I'm not sure if you guys want or interested in me reacting to that or whatever, but maybe I'll check it out at some point. That came out last month, I think. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I will see you all in my next one. Peace out.